All right, Dobbs, you want to go into your top eight?
Yes, sir. All right, to kick it off here at number 8, I got the Dallas Cowboys. Number 7, Miami Dolphins. Number 6, Houston Texans. Number 5, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, Detroit Lions. Number 3, Baltimore Ravens. Number 2, San Francisco 49ers. And then number 1, to nobody's surprise, the Kansas City Chiefs.
At eight, I got the Rams. We already talked about them. Seven, we got the Bengals. We already talked about them. Six, the Ravens. Five, the Texans. Four, the Eagles. Three, the Lions. Two, the 49ers. And number one, the Chiefs. So, starting at number eight, you have the Dallas Cowboys. I have them all the way at 15. My issue with them is I don't like I did not like their free agency class. Their draft class was just okay. They lost a lot of players. They have to repay. They have to pay CD. They're going to have to pay Micah. They're going to have to extend Dak. I just feel like there's so much going on in Dallas, and they didn't get anything done last year. That I'm expecting a down year from them, and I do not expect them to be nearly as good of a team as they were last year.
No, see, I think it's a great point where if we're again, especially if we're considering the future of how that they have to kind of go about things, like yeah, the Cowboys have put themselves into a tricky situation. I just ranked them immediately on like how the talent was this year, but all the points you're making are very valid and like they do have a lot of question marks going forward, like how they're going to handle contract situations and how they're going to keep a lot of stars that they have currently on the roster. So let's just start with this though. If Tyler Guyton doesn't pan out, especially this year, if he has a really rough rookie year, and Cooper Beebe isn't the instant starter that I'm sure that they were hoping that he was when they drafted him. Well, yeah, the bottom line is this O line could be a big issue very early on and throughout a majority, if not the entire season. And again, we're high in the receiving core when you include CeeDee Lamb, but you take CeeDee Lamb out of the equation, the receiving core is definitely a unit that's getting older and it's not right. It's not the top dog unit or one of the best units that it was a couple seasons ago. And I think, more than anything else, right, they have a good DB room, but it's also a DB room that we've seen can be relatively inconsistent, right? Guys that have most of the time great game, but then right when you need at least, they are getting torched. And you could say that about a lot of DBs, obviously, but the Cowboys specifically, it's just been a trend with them. Again, you love the D line situation, but on top of loving the D line situation, like you said, they're gonna have a lot of guys are gonna have to figure out how to pay him. There's gonna be a lot of moving parts soon enough. And like you said, also just to finish off, the replacements that they made, the moves that they made, just not a lot of things that moved the needle when you showed that you still clearly very much had to move the needle, not even able to win one playoff game. You kept everything the same. You're running it back. At the end of the day, I can't rank them much higher than I had them because, yeah, I still think they're a good roster, but they haven't shown the ability to move past just being a good roster.
Well, also my thing is like if you take out CeeDee Lamb, like Brandon Cooks did not have that great of a year last year, and your running back one is Zeke Elliott. So I don't understand how you're going to establish the run game. The O line is a question mark. I don't know. I just don't trust. And Dan Quinn is really what made this defense so good.
That's a great point, though. Yes.
And I just don't know what it's going to be like without it. So I just don't trust the Cowboys this year. I don't really trust them any year. I trusted them more last year than a lot of years, and they disappointed, like always. So I don't know. There's just so many questions about this team, but also no questions at all because you know what's going to happen.
Isn't that the funniest thing? Every year there's so many questions, but they've just never, Cowboys fans, I'm sorry, until the narrative gets broken, we have to joke about it. Like, there's so many questions, but it's the same answer every time.
Number seven, you have the Miami Dolphins. I have them all the way in 18, so maybe that's the farthest I have them apart from you. Here's my thing. We saw what happened in the playoff game versus the Chiefs, and I understand it was very, very cold. They lose Vic Fangio. Obviously, they get a new defensive coordinator. I don't understand, realistically, how this team is any better than they were last year.
See, my thing is, I just think, like, look, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I just think I'm gonna bank on that Tua and Mike McDaniel having another year together. They're gonna keep growing, keep developing that rapport. And again, we know how we feel about Tua. It's been well documented. But does he produce in this offense? Absolutely. When it's not freezing cold, all right. As whenever right, as long as it's not the situation the playoff game was in. But again, this is a whole nother topic, but it just shows at our point of what we always talk about. It's not always about the regular season. It's about being able to do it in January and February when that air gets thick, when it gets cold out, right? But again, that's a little off topic, but on topic at the same time. Like, the thing is, this receiving core is absolutely stacked. Yes, there's questions on the O-line, but I still do think that they can be a relatively productive unit. They have a fantastic running back room with a very good scheme to run the ball, as we've seen. They make it work very well. I am high on the D-line they've put together. Like, yes, obviously, losing Wilkins it's a pretty big deal. But at the same time, Zach Sealer moving over, and like I said, Neville Gallimore is going to be that is the nose. But when you're in nickel, which I think that the Dolphins will be more than they're in base, you have a good set of pass rushers in Shaq Barrett, Jalen Phillips, Zach Sealer, Bradley Chubb. It's just more of the contingencies of can they stay healthy, as we've seen has been the biggest problem with the Dolphins pass rushers over the past few seasons. There's a lot of questions around that. You did improve the DB room though, adding Kendall Fuller. That was an awesome move. If Jalen Ramsey can really have a big bounce back year, that would be huge because Javon Holland has turned into one of the best, the best safeties in the league. And you added Jordan Poyer. So I think it's like they added a lot of good pieces. They lost some important pieces. It's just really a matter of can Mike McDaniel and Tua make another jump together? If they can, I can still see the Dolphins being a pretty successful team this season.
I just struggle also with their interior offensive line at their guard spot, especially. Let me ask you this, though, Dobbs. Okay, how many games do we expect OBJ to play this year?
See, no, that's the thing. Realistically, how many games? I'll say this: how many games do I expect him to play the entire game and not have to either, have something dealt with or miss part of the game and go back to the locker room? How about 12?
Okay, now here's your wide receiver 3 backups: Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, and Malik Washington. I love Malik Washington, but once you get to that wide receiver 3 spot and Odell isn't reliable, it's real thin, and that was a problem last year. And I don't think they addressed the depth very well.
No, that's 100% a fact. That is absolutely is definitely one of the biggest things. Is look, Malik Washington, stay healthy the whole year for these Dolphins because as you and me have harped on, I love Malik too. I think he can actually be a very big part of this offense very early on because of how much attention that Jalen and Tyreek are going to demand, as they always are going to demand. If he can come in here, and OBJ too, though, if OBJ can stay healthy, I can see OBJ kind of having a real nice resurgent season because of the fact that he's going to be demanding essentially the least amount of attention outside of Jonnu Smith. But again, it's like that's the point is whoever the slot is going to be, they just got to be healthy and ready because there's going to be a lot of opportunity for whoever is the slot.
Would be a very nice resurgence. Moving into our next team, you have the Texans at 6. I have them at 5. Honestly, one of the best off seasons in the league, in my opinion. You get Danielle Hunter, you get Stephon Diggs, you add, Danico Autry, and even adding like Kamari Lassiter in the draft. I think they are a team that overperformed like hell last year. And if CJ Stroud does not have a sophomore slump and the coordinators aren't able to figure him out, this is a team where, to me, they are Super Bowl contenders.
No, that's the thing is, it's just the reality is, I think the biggest thing where I'm very surprised again that the Texans didn't re-sign him. The biggest loss for me is that they didn't re-sign Blake Cashman, who I thought was a huge part of this defense last year. Very surprised about that. The linebacking core is really the only area you could say took a bit of a hit. But again, realistically, in the modern NFL, you can afford to not have the best interior backers if you have everything else filled out, which is basically the situation we're at now with the Texans, where they have everything else figured out. And again, if Christian Harris can make a big jump, Azeez Al-Shaair can come back and play how he played in that D'Amico Ryans defense, as we've seen before, how productive he can be in this defense, well, then all of a sudden losing Blake Cashman is not that big of a deal, right? And it's like you have everything else so well built out. Danielle Hunter coming here to complement Will Anderson Jr., or vice versa, depending on how you wanted to look at it, because they're both going to be super high productivity, super high ceiling still players on both sides. It's really a matter of who's going to outproduce the other. That's a good problem to have. They're both going to be super productive, and they're both going to help out on whoever's playing on the interior. Again, maybe the other outside corners are a bit of a question mark. I think Kamari's going to probably be the slot guy for them, but however they want to go about this, they have solid depth relatively, and the cornerback room, they'll be able to figure it out. The O-line's coming together. You added good pieces. The reality is, like you're saying, the Texans did so much to improve off of already such an overperforming season. how could we not have them as one of the upper echelon teams in this entire power rankings?
Well, another thing, we saw like what Devin Singletary did last year running the ball. Joe Mixon is not washed. Like he is still a good player in this league. Adding a more of an effective run game with Joe Mixon, I think just elevates this team even further. Moving in to number 5, you had the Philadelphia Eagles. I had them at number 4. I just love their offseason. I love their free agency. I love their draft class. And, we've seen what happens when you put weapons around Jalen Hurts. He's got A.J. Brown. He's got Devonta Smith. They did add wait, why am I blanking? Johnny Wilson. Yeah, I'm thinking Johnny Wilson.
And Aeneas Smith, too.
Aeneas Smith. I was thinking, I was like, where's the big receiver? But then I remember it was Saquon. Saquon behind that line is going to be deadly, and I think he may have maybe his best year of his career. Obviously, they added Quinyon Mitchell, who is a lot of people's top corner in the draft, and Cooper DeJean, I guess it's pronounced. And they're going to be playing him at corner. So CJ Gardner-Johnson was another big addition. I just don't see how this team, especially with the new hires and Vic Fangio as the DC, is not one of the top 4 teams in the league.
Well, see, and that's the thing is, look, I don't blame you at all. Like, it was so interchangeable with 5 and 4 or 5, 4 and 3, really, just to put it frankly, that it was kind of just like, it's kind of just a toss up. You know what I mean? I think for me, just more than anything, it was kind of like losing Jason Kelce was the biggest reason, maybe, that it's like when you lose a cog as important as Jason Kelce was, I think that was just more of my reason than anything else, where I'm like, okay, maybe, that's a big piece to lose. Or that just maybe is what made them drop a little bit behind. I don't want to spoil who's ahead of them, but you get what I'm saying. Like, that was kind of just more than anything my reasoning. And other than that, though, it's like, the young DBs we have faith in, but I still also have to see them out here and play NFL snaps before I get super on the train, even though I was very much on the train that I do believe they're both are going to be very good college to NFL transitions. But again, until I see it, I can't all the way give it the stamp of approval. That's the thing, is those were just the 2 main contingencies. But if DeJean, and again, it's crazy that that's how you pronounce it after all these
horrible.
Just it's crazy. Yeah, but if Mitchell and DeJean can come in and be the 2 elite corners, alpha corners, even in this first year that I believe that they could be, and then you have Chauncey coming back who proved that he can thrive in this Eagles defense. There's no doubt the Eagles are a top 5 team in the league. And that's really just the only way you can. I mean, that's really the bottom line of the Eagles. Like, they have so much talent. You added Vic Fangio. You gave Jalen more weapons. Saquon Barkley behind this line. There's a lot to look forward to if you're an Eagles fan.
So, yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, too, is it's just they have been at the top of the line. And I think the Eagles are one of those teams that they recognize their weaknesses and they address them immediately. I mean, Howie Roseman has consistently been one of the best GMs in the league. So I fail to see how they have a worse year than they did last year. Moving in to number 4, you have the Detroit Lions. I had them at number 3. So obviously they improved. I think the cornerback room is still a little bit something that they can work on, and it's not a glaring issue. I think the biggest issue for them is probably like edge 2. But overall, I mean, like, how do you pick apart this team? I mean, I think they could have added to the wide receiver room a little bit, but overall, like, just one of the most solid teams in the NFL.
No, yeah, and they also made so many good additions this offseason. It's like, more than anything else, the reason that I don't have them above who I have at 3 is just because, again, with the coaching staff pedigree and a little bit more just pedigree reason, I had the team at 3 above this team. But in terms of roster talent, they're literally right there with anybody else that's ranked above them, if not even potentially higher. Like, if you look at the offensive side of the ball, it is just absolutely stacked. And then the one position where you're like, maybe it's not stacked at with Jameson Williams. Well, we know Jameson Williams has just got to actually be out here and stay healthy consistently, and Jameson Williams still has super, super big potential. We haven't even gotten to really see him thrive in the role that the Lions had planned for him yet, right? So there's still a lot of potential there. You're stacked out on the O-line. Sam Laporte is already one of the best tight ends in the league. Jared Goff's playing fantastic ball. Jahmyr Gibbs is the gadget, amazing running back that, and I don't want to say gadget, but you get what I'm saying. You can do a lot of things with them. Gadget sounds disrespectful, but I mean, he's a versatile tool. And then on defense, yeah, you probably want a little bit more depth on the edge, but minus that, you also maybe Jack Campbell's got to make a big jump this year, or else you still feel like the linebacker room is a little bit lackluster. But that's a minimal problem to have. And outside of that, this team is absolutely stacked with a
100%.
great head coach.
I
Like
think
they're in a fantastic situation.
Yeah, I think my main worry comes next year for them if they do end up losing Ben Johnson. Um, and I think with the energy of this team, it kind of becomes hard to poke holes because you know that they are like a best player plays the game, and like even like players that aren't maybe the greatest in the league overperform because of the culture that they have there. I do really think wide receiver 3 they could have benefited from going and getting somebody, but at the end of the day, they really did address that corner room with Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. So I can't really knock them too much. Number 3 for you, you have the Baltimore Ravens. I have them at number 6. Why are you so high on the Ravens this year?
I think my thing is why. All right, look. So why I'm so high on the Ravens? Let me be clear. Like, right, losing Mike McDonald could be much bigger of a loss than I have it slated to be, and it could end up where it pushes them down much more to like that range where you have them. That might be where they finish at the end of the year, right? But as of right now, it's just kind of like I look at the Ravens. Especially from a grading standpoint, you look at how everybody on the roster finished, you look at how well-rounded they are. They are probably the most well-rounded roster in the league where they really don't have any position group where you can be like, yeah, they're really short, they're really barren of talent. Like they have and I mean every position group with at least solid starters in place. You could question depth in certain areas, but as far as if they have their starters on the field and they can stay healthy, which again, let me be clear, has been a problem for the Ravens traditionally over these last few seasons. So it's not like that's just a guaranteed like, oh, they're gonna have a great season. Because as we've seen, that health can be a huge issue for the Ravens. But I think if we take health aside and I just take it at face value, what I have right now in a fully healthy roster, they really don't have any weaknesses. You have Lamar Jackson, you have Derrick Henry. It's like this is a loaded team, and it's like that's just the bottom line. They are loaded. They have good depth, mostly at every position group. That's just really the biggest reason I had them at number 3.
Yeah, see, I still think they're obviously a top 6 team. I just struggle with how their playoff game went, and to me, the Ravens are starting to become a team where, regardless if you have a lot of talent, I just see them as a team where it's like, I don't know if I believe in you to go all the way. Like, a big issue through Lamar's career has always been wide receiver room. And after they lost OBJ, it's like, well, this is kind of the same thing that we've been dealing with. And you sign Matabike, yes, I get it. And I do like Nate Wiggins as an addition. They addressed the corner room, which was definitely a need to be addressed. But I just don't understand where this team becomes better than the top contenders in the AFC. That is really my struggle. Because to me, I'm taking the Bengals, I'm taking the Chiefs, and I'm taking the Texans all over the Ravens at this point.
See, I don't blame you for that either. I think I'm just going to look at it more like glass half full, where it's like the Ravens essentially beat themselves last year versus
Yeah,
the
that's
Chiefs.
fair.
You take away a couple, crucial, stupid turnovers. They very well could have won that game, and we could have, as obviously hypothetical, but maybe they could have been Super Bowl champs. So it's like I'm just looking at it a little bit more glass half full. But don't get me wrong, I completely understand what you're saying as well.
Well, at number 2 and 1, we have the same teams, and I honestly don't think they're going to take very long because what else can you say?
Yeah.
I think the 49ers will probably take a little bit longer. I think the reason we both have them too is because we need to see them get it done. They could very easily be number 1 if they would have won the Super Bowl last year,
Oh, for
especially
sure.
because of how they've improved in the draft and free agency. But both teams did that, and I'm going to take the quarterback who has 3 rings at this point. So 49ers, obviously, they add Ricky Pearsall at the end of the first. Great addition to their wide receiver room.
Rick, Rick.
They add Malik Collins as well. So they drafted Renardo Green. So they did address the cornerback room, which they desperately needed to do. And I think, obviously, Purdy will get better as he has been. I also think there is a chance that kind of coordinators kind of figure the system out a little bit more. But we know Kyle Shanahan's one of the best play callers in the league. The defense is good. The offense is really good. I would like to see what's going to happen with Ayuk or Samuel. But overall, I mean, this team should be a Super Bowl contender again this year.
Yeah, no, we can keep it short on the last two teams because everyone already knows. We already know why they're here. But just to your point, both of these teams improved their rosters a lot. Not only if you're the Niners are you getting Hufanga back, but then Jair Brown, who replaced him, was playing fantastic ball for a rookie. So now you're coming to a situation where you get your main guy back, but you also get a guy who's playing really good ball also. So your safety room is looking awesome. The linebackers, again, Fred Warner tops off a great room, but then you added Devondre Campbell, who we've seen can be an all-pro level linebacker, a guy who, if he has a resurgence, I mean, this defense is just absolutely stacked out. Again, one of the more underrated additions that they made, I'm going to keep harping on it. Isaac Yiadom, from the Saints, he played fantastic ball for us last year at corner. He's a little lower on the depth chart than I think I can very much see him end up being where him and Ronaldo Green are kind of just taking snaps, switching snaps at that slot role. I would not be surprised at all to see him on the field much more than a lot of people expect him. Regardless, though, Ronaldo Green also a fantastic, addition. Deommodore Lenoir started playing a really good ball over these last couple seasons, performing up to that draft pick. But then to the offensive side of the ball, yeah, you added Ricky to an already loaded receiving room. Apparently now Debo or Ayuk's not even on the trade block anymore. So if you're a Niners fan, you're ecstatic about that. Yeah, maybe still a little bit of work to be done on this interior in the future. But even if not, you still have a really good offensive line. You still have a great unit. You have George Kittle, who's playing fantastic. McCaffrey playing at the ceiling of his career, and then Brock Purdy steadily improving. I mean, if you're the Niners, you got to feel damn happy about your roster.
I think that's that. Moving on to the final team, Kansas City Chiefs. They add Xavier Worthy. They add, Hollywood Brown. They have Rashee Rice. They get Kingsley Suamataia as a tackle. Their corner room is a little scary, but overall, we've seen what Steve Spagnuolo has been able to do with that team. And if Rice does not have a super lengthy extension, this offense is better than last year. It's much better than last year. So I just don't see how this team doesn't repeat.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm always gonna be careful with I don't see I agree with you. I think that we very much will see them in the Super Bowl. I know teams are gonna be hungry. There's gonna be that target on their back, but I agree in a sense of I think the best way I could say it is how could you not have them slotted to be the favorite? You know what I mean?
Right,
How
right,
could you
right.
not have them slotted to be the favorite after we already know the pedigree of this team? You add so many guys that just fit perfectly into the skill set of what Mahomes has, where they're going to mesh so perfectly. And the O line, again, it's already a great unit. Travis Kelce, you don't have to worry about the future with him anymore in the immediate. Pacheco is Pacheco, a hard runner, a guy who's going to pass protect. He's going to do his thing. And, maybe whatever say you want to talk about, the guy next to Chris Jones, maybe you could find an improvement on that interior, but that's really the only thing you could even say. I mean, there's so many things. Leo Chenal has turned into one of the best off-ball linebackers in the league very quickly. The linebacking room with Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, they have a great linebacking core. The DB room, a lot of good young guys in this DB room. There's just so many good things about the Chiefs. Yeah, how could we not have them slated to be the favorite to repeat again and go for that three-peat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see what Xavier Worthy can do with Mahomes this year.
Yeah, excited, but also not.
Oh, why not?
Because I don't want to have to watch Xavier Worthy torching the Saints.
Oh, true. All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been our post-draft off-season power rankings for all 32 teams. If you don't know ball and want to know ball, be sure to subscribe. Leave a like. Let us know in the comments where we were off, what we were craziest for, your highest power ranking team that we didn't have. I don't know, it's kind of phrased weird. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your night.